Hello, and welcome to In Phase and Tune with Autism, the podcast. This is the first solo episode that I'm doing since the reboot, and it's also the first episode that I'm labeling spiritual series, which will be a series of episodes that are solo episodes with me that are going to be about spiritual experiences that I've had that are going to be what I'm calling, by the way, spirit is the divine intelligence, the unseen intelligence, the intelligence that many of us have a relationship with that is beyond our known senses that we've been taught, right? I'm excited to do this because it's been a long time coming. I've been inspired for this type of series to share in this way for a very, very long time, and I just haven't done it consistently, and now is the time. Now is the time. So yeah, if you are on video right now, you see me fixing myself, but I know that most of my streams are just on audio, sorry. So I'm excited about it. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. I've been inspired to do a series like this for a long time, and I feel like Spirit has quite literally spelled it out for me to get this series going. For the reasons, I don't know. Maybe because people who are opening up to their spiritual path need to hear it. Maybe parents need to hear it to trust their intuition more. Maybe it's for other people in the community who are needing to trust their intuition and spirit more, the divine more. I don't know. The reason that I do it in this space of In Phase, In Tune with Autism podcast is because a lot of my spiritual journey and my inner journey of looking inside and learning about what I'm going to call my ego, which is mind-made patterns, which a lot is motivated by fear, right? A lot of that has been brought to me through the non-speakers. A lot of my inner work has also just been parallel to my experiences with the non-speakers. And in a future episode, I'm going to talk about why I think that is, because I think so many people are brought to the healing path because of the special pure vibration that they hold. Anyways, this has been a call for a long time. It's something that I can't put down. The phone keeps on ringing. So here we are, episode 1. I've been inspired to tell a story about the first time that I was able to consciously discern that spirit was sending me a message, that spirit was speaking to me. To start off this story, I'm going to reflect kind of on where I was during the time of the story. So in physical time, where I was, it was probably 2016, 2017. And at that time, the way that I saw myself in the world, the way that I related to the world, I'm going to say was like very 3D. I always wanted to have a relationship with God or the divine that I could trust, but I have to say that at that time, I did not have that at that time in my life. Again, to put it simply, I was very 3D. I only thought the things that we were physically taught were real. I was very much, like most of us, conditioned by the materialistic paradigm. I was not conscious of the fact that I was divinely protected, that I was being divinely communicated to. You know, now I believe that we all have angels, we all have a spirit team, we all have unseen, whatever you want to call it, connections and help. And though I did absolutely always have that, and I believe that wholeheartedly now, in no way during this time did I have any trust. On the conscious level, I was not able to acknowledge that this was true for me. I wanted to, and I said that I believed in God, but you know, the truth of what we believe isn't just saying, yeah, I believe in God. So even though at the time, if somebody said, do you believe in God? I would say, yeah. But truth is an embodiment. So that means you send out the signal and you live your life as if, yes, I believe in God. I know, I trust that I have help. I trust that spirit is there. I didn't have that embodiment signal. I very much had a signal of fear and only believing in the things that could be seen and felt, right? Here and there, I'd have glimpses that were really strong of my intuition and of the fact that spirit was around, but I didn't have, again, the embodiment to sustain it, to sustain that belief and make it conscious. And, to be honest, which I will explain in future episodes, my whole entire life, I had spiritual experiences where I saw things, I heard things, I absolutely felt things. But again, because I had no trust in these things, and because so many of us are conditioned for the embodiment of mistrust in our own experience, I completely, all those experiences that I had, I wrote them off as if they didn't happen. Yeah, so that's where I was during this time, right? 2016, 2017, this is where the story begins. And again, this is the story of how I first discerned and acknowledged that spirit was communicating with me. So leading up to this point, right? The way that I lived my life, I already explained it to you, very 3D. So what this meant was that everything that I was feeling and experiencing that was unseen, that was not part of the materialistic paradigm, those things were being pushed down. They were being suppressed, right? Well, that suppression and repression of those experiences is energy. It's energy that I was repressing. So there's that part of me and that part of my experience that I was not acknowledging and letting come up and not letting it move through, right? Along with emotions. So I'm a very sensitive person. I've learned along my inner journey, and now I have developed the tools to be able to thank friggin' God, process my emotions so I could feel good and be healthy. But up until this point, I wasn't processing emotions. When they came out, it was cray cray. Let's just call it that for now. We'll save that for another episode. But this is part of the story because there were these parts of me, especially like these more sensitive parts, these spiritually connected and curious parts that I had to put away because, and so many of us experience this. In my experience, I went to Catholic school. So if I would ask certain questions or if I would say certain things, a lot of the times I would be met with not validation, not reflection back, not acknowledgement. I was met with, you should stop. You're weird. You're too much. Why are you even thinking about that, right? So all these parts were suppressed with shame as well. So I'm a walking embodiment, at this time, and this is all happening unconsciously. This is what, our systems do evolutionarily. They have us best fit into the group, fit into the mold. And again, I have chills because I'm thinking about all the lessons that the non-speakers have to teach us as a whole in a massive scale level, but also an individual level about these very things. But let me stick to the script of what Spirit has inspired me to talk about in this very episode. So, that is part of the story at this point in time. I'm living 3D and I'm also suppressing a lot of energy. So around 2017, 2018, a few things happened. That triggered this, I'm going to call it ungluing of the mask, cracking of the ego shell. I started to lose my balance in a sense. It was like the ways in which I had been conditioned to hold up this personality and this person that I was being in the world no longer was holding up. Like I didn't have the energy to physically do it anymore, and my world was getting shook. So two things happened. One, it was 2017 that I got pregnant. Me and my husband had our little baby girl who is now 8. She just turned 8. Okay, let me not think about it. I'm happy she's a sweet, healthy baby. So that happened, life began to grow in me. And long story short, I'm not going to get too detailed, but when I got pregnant, it was probably like 6 months in or so, I could not stop crying. And no matter what I did, I couldn't stop crying. Like I couldn't go to work anymore. So I told people, I ended up having to quit my full-time job at the time. And I was just embarrassed about the fact. So I couldn't tell people, yeah, I'm quitting because I can't stop crying. It was, oh, yeah, I want to rest and relax before I have my babe. So I'm quitting. But truth be told, if my conditions would have allowed it, I would have went to work still, but I couldn't stop crying. So that happened. And then in 2018, I gave birth naturally, which was a whole experience, a whole experience. And something in my world shifted that day through that experience. So that was one thing. And another was I had started working with the non-speakers in the capacity where I was presuming competence in their intellect, and I was not, no longer measuring their body responses and giving them meaning. I was more so really needing to connect with the belief in them and their intellect. And I was working really hard at that because, I discovered the letter boards. I started working with them in that way. Had a few clients on my own, and then I started working at this amazing facility in Atlanta and got a lot of experience there. And long story short, I learned that they were telepathic. I learned that they were energy digesters, that they were perceiving things that other people around them weren't perceiving. And I have chills as I say it. And so a lot of things were shifting in my world, a lot of things. And my materialistic paradigm was no longer holding up. And so all of my conditioning of like, yeah, I'm good, which had already started to fall apart. And there was signs that they were signs before, like throughout my at this point in time, I got pregnant when I was 27, but throughout like my early 20s and all that, I had major panic attacks and major emotional turmoil that I quite literally pushed down and ignored, and I got no help with. And I just told myself, because we're all conditioned to you make it work. What I did was I shamed myself for having those big emotions. I shamed myself for having that panic. Why are you panicking? Why are you so emotional? You should be grateful. You have a great life. And those things were true. I did have a great life, but there was a lot, like I said, under the surface that was bubbling up, and I never fully acknowledged it or tended to it. You would have thought that I would have tended to it because I was a friggin' master's in mental health counseling, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts. But for me, I thought I was good. I was not looking deep enough. I don't think I wanted to look deep enough or had the capacity at the time. But, these things were happening. Like I said, gave birth, was going through a lot, learning that materialistic paradigm isn't it, that non-speakers are telepathic. There's a lot more that's possible that I was taught isn't possible. And so I was kind of just shook. And so I came across a woman named Danielle Sarank. And I hope I'm saying that right, Danielle. And she is known as the Squamish Medium. And I heard about her on a podcast that I accidentally downloaded. And everything about her voice and what she was saying just pulled me in. And she was talking a lot about energy. And I definitely at this point early on listened to my intuition and hired her as my mentor because I knew I needed help. I knew I felt lost, and she seemed like the right person. And so I hired her. During our time working together, and I don't think I ever told her this, I had a moment where my wheels were spinning with everything. And of course, she's immersed in the spirit world. She talks to people who are passed on. She works with energy and all that. So I'm like being exposed to all this. And so, like I said, during our time together, I think it was like after one of our meetings that we had, I went to take a shower, and it was like for the first time in my entire life, or at least in my entire like conditioned life, I was being honest with myself, with everything that I was feeling and everything that was going on. And it was like the mask was like off. Like I couldn't put it back on. I was just having this moment of extreme grief, gut wrenching grief, and a feeling of hopelessness. And I was able to acknowledge it to myself out loud, even though I felt major shame for feeling this way because I had a beautiful life, because I felt like I shouldn't have anything to feel grief over, right? And so I'm just crying and I'm just feeling like so extremely lonely, which I had felt before. I just, again, never really acknowledged it. And so I spoke out loud and I said, help me, help me. I need help, you know? And at the time, I definitely didn't have the feeling that anybody was really hearing me. I never really felt that way, even though I did tend to pray like every night my whole entire life. Like I remember as a kid, like saying thank you for this, thank you for that, thank you for this, like trying to be, trying to have gratitude as a child, but like never really feeling like people hurt me. When I look back now in retrospect, as a child, before like going to school, being completely conditioned in modern society, I was connected and I was so the embodiment of trust and confidence and just like belief. As a kid, I didn't define it as belief in spirit because I didn't know. Children just naturally are connected to the light and to their light, and they have light in their freaking eyes. Like, it brings me to tears. Like, that's another thing. Like, after Finley was born, I just recognized the light in kids' eyes. The light. Okay, I'm gonna have to cut this off and come back at another time. So I'll probably be wearing a different outfit because I gotta go get my child. Speaking of Finley. All right. Okay, had a little to be continued moment there. I had to go get my little girl from school and I did not allow myself enough time to record a whole podcast. So if you're on audio, doesn't make much of a difference. But if you just happen to be on video, outfit change, right? Energy change here. Okay, so I'm sorry if I repeat myself because I have lived a whole day since I've last recorded the first part of this story, but I will try to pick up where I left off. All right, bullet points. I was at a time in my life where I was living that 3D life, did not acknowledge any spiritual connection or practice spirituality at all. Yes, I did have an intuition that was speaking to me. I did not know at the time how to hear it, how to listen to it, how to honor it. I was living that conditioned lifestyle. And two big things had happened in my life. I had given birth naturally, and that definitely shifted something, right, that I had mentioned in the first part. And also started working with non-speakers in the way of presuming competence and the way of connecting with the person inside beyond the body. Learned that they could telepathically tune into people and that they were reading people beyond the normal senses that most of us have learned about. And so my whole world was just shaky. And okay, yes, so I was coming to the moment where I had started working with a mentor named Danielle, who is known as the Squamish Medium. I had mentioned, yes, that there was lots of energy underneath the surface that I was masking throughout my body, that I was holding down unconsciously, right? And some of the things that I was holding down, if we're going to put a name on it, was the fact that I did have a spiritual connection and I was having spirit communicate with me my whole life. I believe that spirit is communicating with all of us. Now, I do think that we all have different journeys, meaning that we all have different lessons and experiences to have here and different roles to play here. So not everybody's role is going to have them being in this spiritual space, but mine was. My soul had been calling me for this in different ways for a long time, right? So I was pushing all those things down, all those callings down, and also repressing lots of emotions. I mentioned that I'm a very sensitive person. I pick up on things. I feel things extremely loud in my body. And I used to kind of think that like everyone was like this and other people were just good at just like forgetting about it and moving on. But I've learned, okay, that's not true. There's actually something called a highly sensitive person, an HSP, and you feel things more loudly. And I'm definitely one of those people. And so lots of repressed energy and emotions that were there, right? Okay, so I'm recalling that the story was leading up to this moment of when I was by myself and I was taking a shower and I was really and truly feeling like I was taking off this mask for the first time. This mask of trying to keep going and trying to just do things the ways that I had been conditioned to do them by modern society, by the materialistic paradigm. And I was acknowledging the things that were going on. So I was acknowledging that I was having this panic, that I was having this hopelessness, and also depression. Depression was something that would come up for me here and there. And again, I think I mentioned I would completely ignore it. And this is the first time I was acknowledging how depressed I really felt. And all the while not feeling like I could even do that. Like I felt shame over acknowledging this. But anyways, nonetheless, I was acknowledging it and I was asking for help. I was asking for help. This is part 2. I can't remember if I said this or not, but I think I mentioned that at the time it didn't feel like anyone was listening to me. I had no trust that any type of intelligence was hearing me, like I was actually being heard, but I was being heard. And now I know that my whole life I was being heard, I was being held, I was being helped, you know? And in that moment, I had a memory come to me. I had a memory come to me. And I have chills now saying it. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, this was the first time that I was able to acknowledge that spirit was speaking to me. And they were speaking to me through bringing my awareness to a memory. And this memory was when I was in kindergarten. I mean, I'm getting emotional because this is what spirit does. This is what spirit does. Spirit makes you... Lots of times it can bring up emotion because it's bringing you to that vibration. But I had a memory where I was in kindergarten and I was reading, or actually I was pretending to read because I did not know how to read. I was probably 4 or 5. I did go to kindergarten when I was 4. My birthday was like right before the cutoff date. So I was pretending to read The Little Mermaid, and there was so many angles and messages from spirit that just came to me in this memory, like encapsulated in this memory. And I can literally picture it. It was the page where Ursula was taking Ariel's voice, and Ariel was giving up her voice to Ursula. And in this memory, the messages that I understood from spirit was, you gave up your real voice. You gave up your real powerful voice. You're no longer using your real powerful voice. And there wasn't any like, oh, shame on you or anything like that. It was like, your voice is powerful and you gave it up. Yeah. And it was also like, look at you. Look at her. She doesn't even know how to read, but she's standing tall in the belief and reading to a classroom of 30 kids and a teacher, and she doesn't even know how to read. This next part, it makes me emotional. It really does. And the last piece was, you're gonna get your voice back. And you're gonna help other people get their voice. And I knew some of what that meant at the time, which because I was working with non-speakers on the letterboards. So at the time, I just thought that that's what it meant, but it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that because yes, non-speakers do get a more physical voice through the letterboards, and it's in so many ways such an amazing blessing. But their voice is more than that, and they are always communicating and mirroring and sending powerful messages just through who they are and their vibration. So I believe their voice as a whole is a lot stronger than just the letterboards. And I think that collective we are learning. We're in the process of learning how to listen. We're learning how to perceive the communication of their vibration that they hold. Yeah. And it's also reflected in other ways now presently. You know, people that I work with in my one-on-one containers, that I work with more on the spiritual side, mental health side, you know, they're people who are like me. They are people who are very sensitive and have a strong intuition, but they've been conditioned out of hearing it. So they have lost their voice, their powerful voice, to meet the needs of the societal box and to fit in into and to, you know, do the best they could. And this all happens unconsciously. This all happens under the surface, right? And now their power is bubbling up because it's their soul journey at this point to start stepping into their voice, to start learning how to embody the power that is their voice and release the fear that's been conditioned. So I knew what it meant somewhat, but I had no idea the impact, and I know there will be more down the line. So it's, ooh, I have chills, and I feel like spirit is like, oh, I'm emotional. I feel like spirit is thanking me. Thank you, spirit. I feel like spirit's holding me right now and thanking me for actually doing this and actually saying this out loud. Because this, you know, this happened years ago. This memory came up. This probably happened in 2020. Yeah, and Spirit has been inspiring me to talk about this openly and on my podcast. And I haven't always listened. I mean, I haven't listened until now. Yes, I have dipped into spiritual talk, but they really wanted me to get personal about it. And I know it's for some reason. I know it's for some beautiful reason. And it's just been hard for me. It's hard for, you know, one of the things that I struggle with is that vulnerability and acknowledging that these things are real, because I've always been conditioned to think that they weren't. And I've always had shame around being too serious, too deep, too much, and kind of had to force myself to be interested in what other people were interested in, and yada, yada, yada. And I lost my way for a long time, and I didn't even know I lost my way. But that's why I ended up depressed. That's why I ended up panicked, because I wasn't following what I was meant to do. And sitting here in this moment, I'm happy to say that I feel more regulated than I've felt since kindergarten. I've put a lot of time into that regulation, a lot of time. So yeah, there's the story. And like I said, I know it's for a good reason. I know that in this movement, in this paradigm shift from, you know, not presuming competence and only looking at outside behaviors to presuming competence in non-speakers, and also, you know, within my business now, acknowledging that they are spiritually connected. They are digesting energy at a higher caliber. I'm not going to lie about that, you know? I don't need to, right? I have my own company, and the people who work with me because they trust me, and they're moving into those lessons that I'll talk about later on down the line in episodes of, we're no longer here to trust like people's words and like what they say. It's like we're moving into trusting the frequency. There's a lot of us being called to move into that power of, it's no longer going to be, I need physical proof. It's going to be, oh, all I have to do is look inside to know if this is a yes or if this is a no. All I have to do is anchor inside to know if this is true or if this is not true. So, you know, a lot of people, especially parents, professionals working with the non-speakers closely, so many of us are being called to be in that unshakable power and not be moved by the things around us, and to be moving people who are around us. So that's what that paradigm shift is calling for. And I hope that you enjoyed this first episode, and stay tuned for the next. Absolutely, if you're interested in this episode, if you have any questions or anything like that, absolutely message me. I'll leave my socials in the show notes. Thank you so much for those of you who have been consistently tuning in. I couldn't be happier. Have an awesome day. Spirit loves you. Spirit loves you. Okay, bye.